Hello, everybody! I need a better transition. Hi. I'm gonna take these off. Hey, friends. Welcome to the show. Hey, everybody. Let me just... Kelly is not here, so I'm gonna be copying down questions for a little bit, so... if I get a little distracted, it's because I've gone back to the dark old days. But Kelly should be back soon. She texted me about 2 minutes ago saying that she was heading home from work, and she doesn't work that far away, so she'll be home soon. But yeah, welcome to Step Back Tonight, the weekly show I do on Tuesday nights where I hang out with y'all. Horns get honked down in the street, and I hang out with you. I answer questions. We talk about stuff, and we grow. We grow closer as creator and audience. Yeah. Maybe I can give you guys a bit of an update. Couple things. One, look at this. Look. It's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. There's official Step Back merch if you want it. Let me just get you guys, anyways, interested in getting one of them's. You can definitely pick one up. Let me just check. I'm writing down these questions. Sorry, I'm gonna get. I get distracted easily, as you guys all know. So, if there's anybody who's new in the stream tonight, please make yourself known. I love new people, and I want all of them to be my friends. So hello new people. If there are any new people, it could just be all old school people, which is fine too. Nothing more great than hanging out with an old buddy, right? So, what has been going on? I just I finished Quick Step a bit earlier than most people, most times that I get to do it, because I stayed home today from work because of cluster headaches, and so I was feeling all right in the early afternoon, and I was able to just to get a video recorded and then edit it and get it out. So that's nice. Which is good, because I'm gonna need all the time I can get, because I'm working on a video for the 31st. The next Step Back Prime video comes out on the 31st, and I'm hammering away at the script as fast as I can, because a little bit behind. But as I've told you guys before, my process is slowing down, so this is like the last of like the old style, like the style of Step Back videos you saw with like the War of 1812 and like with what's it called? War of 1812 and the Buddhism video and the Paris Commune video. Those are kind of like the three videos that I feel like are in a certain style that I've gotten comfy with, and I'm moving towards something a little more cinematic. And yeah, getting excited. Oh, I see. I think Kelly is home. So there you go. I got all of these questions to write down. Yeah, so what other things are having fun? So I have a new video coming on the 31st. It's going to be about indigenous people, specifically about the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. That's my plan. It's going to be really good. I hope. The research has been very fun. I had a lot of trouble trying to get the script to work because I had an original plan for it that was going to be really cool, but then I had a whole plan, and then it didn't work, and so now I have to do something very different. Someone was like bread tube lighting. For my plans for the what's it called? For this new step back style, I'm taking inspiration from a bunch of sources, but I'd probably say the three biggest ones are NerdSync, Philosophy Tube, and Adam Ruins Everything, the TV show. Those are like the three stylistic sources I'm trying to go with my new style. I want to have my videos have this sort of meta narrative, like kind of like an episode of Adam Ruins Everything has like a plot that then breaks into discussions about something. And I think that I could do it a little bit less disjointed than an episode of Adam Ruins Everything, but there's that. And then I kind of want to have more cinematography, less video essay stuff. I really like the way that Scott, who runs NerdSync, structures structures and talks to his audience, and so I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see what we come out with. I think I don't know what's going on with Kelly. Hi. Hi. I've been collecting questions. If you made a document, I'll just copy them in. Yeah. What else? While I delay. I'm collecting all the questions, by the way. I'm just delaying for a little bit. So yeah, I have... So those are the changes I want to make. And the first one you'll see that has sort of made this change will be the one that comes out at the end of June. June 30th. It's going to have... As far as I know right now, I'm in the research phase, but as far as I know right now, the June video is going to have Thought Slime, not in like a collab, but like an actual, like the two of us in person doing the video together. It's going to have Thought Slime and makeup, and it's going to have Isaac Arthur, and it might have an interview with archaeologist Kenneth Fetter. So, if you like, I mean, don't spoil it for anyone else if you already know what the video is going to be about. But if you can put those three people together, you might have an idea of what I'm making the video about. Just talking about that. It's exciting. I'm pretty pumped. Alrighty, let me just copy all these questions down, and then I'll get to answering them. I feel like I have done the front matter enough. I got to get down to the things that you guys want to hear about, not just the things that I want to talk about with making my videos. All right. I am on view only. Request edit access. 1 second. We are working on a Google Doc. Ooh, Ariel Fernandez. Hello. Welcome back to the stream. I saw that you sent me some Twitter DMs with a bunch of stuff about Ortega and... Or not Ortega, sorry. About Cuba Bautista. And I did not reply because I didn't really know what you wanted me to say. I'm trying to think that maybe you're trying to get me to come to some sort of, what's his name, like Castro bad conclusion or something. In which case, I mean, I'm not like fully on board for that, but I'll listen. Okay. But Ariel Fernandez, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. You have already done so many awesome things for me. I used to say that on a note on super chats, that these streams and all of the people who Patreon the channel, who give super chats, who go to paypal.me/stepbackhistory, or who buy t-shirts, are all contributing a whole lot towards making this something that I can do as a full-time career. I'm getting... Oh, thank you very much, Ariel, for another $2 super chat. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. To talk about that, super chats and Patreon and all that kind of stuff contribute so much to making this something I can do full time. I have a little thing at the end of my next video, my Monday video, where I kind of talk about how I'm very, very close to going full time. And at the moment, I'm in this sort of awkward position where I'm straddling 2 full-time jobs between YouTube and my day job, and my wife and I have come to an agreement where there's a point I can hit that I'm very, very close to, and once I get there, I can put in that notice, and I can stop having tension headaches. So, whatever. And also, if you don't have the money, I don't have any ill will or anything towards you. That's perfectly fine. I totally understand. What I would recommend is that if you want to help out the channel and you don't have the resources, or you don't want to support it financially, which is fine, sharing with friends and family and subreddits and stuff like that is also very, very helpful to helping this channel grow. So just wanted to get that all out there, to know how appreciated all of your viewership and help is. And now I will start answering questions. Give you guys what you want, which is my opinions on things, which is a strange thing to say. So let's talk. Okay. Do you know that Sims 4 is free on Origin right now? Download it and recreate the chat for a stream. Oh, that'd be fun. I don't know very much about. I don't really know. I've never played. The last time I played The Sims was the first Sims, when it first came out, and it was one of those video games that I do this occasionally with video games. There's a couple video games where this happens to me, where I get really, really into it for a single day. And then after that single day, I do not want to touch it ever again. Now there's been there's 4 Sims out, right? So, and probably a quadrillion expansion packs. So maybe it's time to come back. 'Cause I think the first Sims was probably before some of you were born. So, it's probably more than time to sort of give it another look. But making chat figures in The Sims might be fun, and then making a house and then seeing what happens. And then trying to make them all have successful careers without shitting their pants is that. Isn't that basically the task of The Sims? But I've done that with other games. There was a game called Game Dev Tycoon that I got really into for 1 day, and then I never wanted to play it again. And it happens from time to time. Thoughts on milkshaking fascists? I think it's good. I think milkshaking fascists is good clean fun. Okay, maybe not clean, but it's definitely good fun. It's probably going to be fun until someone tries that on a prominent politician in America and their guard detail shoots them. Someone's going to try and milkshake. I even saw somebody on Twitter was asking for advice about possibly milkshaking what the hell's his name? I just talked about him in my video earlier today. Mitch McConnell. And they were talking about milkshaking Mitch McConnell, and somebody's first thing was like, their guard detail will fucking kill you. Like, that's like you can do that to like a British politician because no one gives a shit about British politicians. But like in America, where like people take their M16 to freaking like Walmart, politicians have to be a lot more protective, and their guard detail is much more hardcore. But definitely, like, if we had teleportation ways that we could like teleport a milkshake over top of politicians' heads, there are a huge list of them that I would like to do. That is true. I think that, yeah, someone says everyone hates politicians in Britain. That is true. I wish that Americans and Canadians were more like British people when it came to their politicians. Americans are so obsessed with wanting like a dynamic like leader, a superhero president that they can believe in, that they can be inspired by. And the Brits are like, this person's a fucking prime minister, and I hate them. And the second they fuck up, I'm going to vote for someone else. And like cheering on the active destruction of their prime minister's career. Yeah, I'm down. I am down. I think that we should have a more healthy, cultivated, active hatred of our politicians in Canada and the US compared to like, just like the British have. Ariel Fernandez, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. You're awesome. Do you want Canada to become a federal democratic constitutional republic? That's a lot of adjectives. Or are you okay with having a federal constitutional monarchy? I mean, the Queen's not great. I mean, okay, so the thing about Canada is that like we have a queen, and like the Queen doesn't do a whole lot. Like, the role of the Queen in our culture is very, very small. She's on the money. That's like, I think, like the most impact that she has on our society. But symbolically, yeah, I'm totally down with getting rid of the Queen. I think that we, as like a culture, and this isn't just like the UK or Canada, but like all of the Western world is way too obsessed with the royal family, and we should, not like I'm not down for like a Louis the 16th situation, but I'm definitely down for like, hey, they're going to, like, let's just like take away all of the things that they have no desire to, that they have no purpose in doing. Just give them one of their multiple castles, and they can just be wealthy jerks until the revolution comes, and we'll take that too. But I mean, okay, wait. Just like, we don't need them. They're like this weird thing. And also, if you watch the Sean video on the Queen, shows that like the Queen, like this whole, like there's this like myth that they have this like this tourism angle that makes them so much better. But honestly, like I don't think that it doesn't seem to actually pan out. I'm definitely not for doing anything nasty to our Queen, because at the moment she looks like she's kind of like a Ruth Bader Ginsburg character, where like a strong breeze could take her out. And it's like, you don't need to do anything violent towards a 91-year-old woman, or however old she is now. Just kind of hang on for a bit and then just not replace her. It's that easy. It's just that easy. You can have, once the Queen dies, then you have your big, stupid funeral that'll cost like, $150,000 full ride college scholarships. And then we can just be done. Just done. And we just don't have to have queens or kings anymore. Except for all the countries in Europe that still have kings and queens. So like the Dutch and the Danish and the Spanish and all the other ones that I'm missing. I did find out, I don't know, this is like so outside of my demographic audience, but I did see that the trailer for the Downton Abbey movie came out today, and that they show that the plot of the Downton Abbey movie is that the king and queen are visiting Downton Abbey, which is like, okay, I guess that's a thing. That's the plot of Downton Abbey, the movie. We'll see how that goes. All those crazy shenanigans that they get up to with their typhoid and their Irish socialists and all sorts of stuff. Reminds me, I think I stopped watching that show in season 3. I should probably pick it up again. Oh, if it's gonna come out in September, I should be done the show by then. Oh boy. All right, Aro Fernandez, thanks for the $5 super chat again. Do you think the province of Quebec will ever become a sovereign independent country, and do you think that DC and Puerto Rico will ever become states? Quebec becoming a sovereign independent country, I have my reservations and doubts about. Quebec's sovereignty and Quebec separatism is is at a pretty all-time low at the moment. It seems like that whole movement was very much a boomer thing, and the younger generations are either at a position where they say hey, either we won't do it unless we're in an economically good situation to do it, which will be never given Quebec, or just not do it. And that seems to be the more common thing, because also they would lose a lot of opportunities by cutting off Canada. The only thing I could think of is if Canada itself was dissolved, or if we had a conservative prime minister who did something especially egregious to the Quebecois, and the Quebecois got so angry that they would that they thought to leave. As far as DC and Puerto Rico, I imagine a maverick Democratic president. There's this book, and I want to read it. It's on my infinitely long list of books to read, and it's about the District of it's a Democrat book. It's a book about how Democrats should fight dirty in so many different ways, all the underhanded political shit that that Democrats could do to take over the government, and in ways that the Republicans have already done. So these are things two of them would be DC and Puerto Rico becoming states, because they are almost guaranteed to be Democratic states. The other one would be to split up California into several states, because that would create several new Democratic states as well. And there's a bunch of other stuff, packing the court and all this other stuff. That's basically all of the dirtiest, ugliest political machinations that the Democrats could do to get themselves back in power, because right now the kind of structures of the American system are designed to benefit Republicans. And so I know I'm veering very off the course. So I do think that DC and Puerto Rico statehood are on the list. They are definitely on a Democratic wish list. And if the right president with enough of a mandate did it, then yeah. Thank you, Ariel Fernandez, again for the $2 super chat. USSA, United Socialist States of America. That'd be fun. That's the best one. All right. Next up is, what would you think if Donald Trump wins again in 2020? I would be very, very disappointed in Americans. See, the thing is about if Donald Trump won again in 2020, it would be very much dependent on the campaign. If we end up with if somehow the Democratic candidate is Amy Klobuchar or something weird like that, then I'm gonna be yeah, well, what did you expect, Democrats? And I would be mad at the Democrats more than I'd be mad at anybody else. But if it was a genuine surprise, if it was one of the more left-wing candidates, say Elizabeth Warren, it would probably end up that would actually end up genuinely shocking me, and I would be very curious about what context and conditions caused that. And very much like when Trump was elected in 2016, I would probably have to go into a state of re-examination over how I got to the political positions I have, or not the political positions I have, but how America got to the point it is now and what Americans are like. But I've studied America quite a bit. It's the country that I have. It's the closest thing I could literally call myself an expert to is the United States and United States history and politics and culture. Get some more light there. And so, this is a thing. Question: what empire would you restore? I would restore... Oh, what is the name of this empire? First of all, empires suck, and I would rather none of them get restored. But if we had to restore one empire, I would restore... what the hell is this guy's name? Yes, I would restore the reign of Emperor Norton. Emperor Norton was this guy in the 19th century who had a plot of land in the southwestern United States, if I remember correctly, and he had declared himself the Emperor of the United States. And Emperor Norton had nobody he became kind of like a sideshow, and people thought it was like a joke and all that kind of stuff. He tried very hard, and I would love to have him have his plot of land in like New Mexico or whatever become an empire of real empires only. Oh geez. God, there's like no good empires, so I'm trying to think of like the least bad empire. Pacifist Empire of Ashoka. You know what? That sounds good. We'll go with that one. Ashoka sounds fun. I was going to go with the sort of wide mark of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, but let's go with that one. I would not be down for the Aztec Empire coming out, because I feel like if the Aztec Empire came back, like the Aztecs were cool in like the deep past, that's for sure. But like today, I'm not like the hugest fan of perpetual war and human sacrifice. Just my opinion. I believe you need the California legislator in the U.S. Congress to approve to split the state of California. It's likely not going to happen. Yeah, it'd be tough, but this is why I want to read the book. I want to find out what happens. I want to find out how it works. Okay. So, all right. What is next? Okay, yeah. Next question is, Kevin Logan's Twitter is suspended. Do you think that is horrible? I think so. I was having conversations with people about what happened. So Kevin Logan, for those who don't know who Kevin Logan is a sort of mid-sized YouTuber who he's basically like a left-wing TMZ type organization. He does like a lot of like calling out the far right on their bullshit, and a lot of like, just mocking people, and it's funny and it's good. And he got banned from Twitter, and nobody knows, like people I've been asking around, like, the YouTube sphere if anyone knows what happened. And the closest thing I've gotten to a consensus is that Kevin Logan got brigaded by TERFs, and that there was like a coordinated Facebook effort by TERFs to silence him. Hopefully this can be undone. We shall see. I know that when they abuse the automated Twitter function or the automated YouTube functions to make a channel get shut down, I've said to you guys several times that like usually when the far right tries to mass flag a YouTube channel until they get shut down, Usually what happens is they get brought back a couple days later as soon as it goes through manual review, and it usually ends up in the sort of Twitter, social media firestorm and all of the reposting of their videos and like mirroring and stuff. They usually end up in a much better place than they were when they started. That's kind of, if you think about it, that is how Sean and that is how Three Arrows both became prominent. And that's kind of how the Surfs got a big boost out of that too. So like, you can, it actually is a pretty, it's actually kind of a blessing in disguise in a weird way. Wish Far Right people, or I wonder why Far Right people haven't figured that one out yet, but here we are. So, by the way, Paige, thank you very much for the $1 super chat. Much appreciated. You are helping immensely with everything you can do. All right. So, on the Kevin Logan thing. The thing is, like, that's YouTube. I have no idea how it works on Twitter. Because Twitter doesn't ban Nazis, but they will ban Kevin Logan, and I don't know what it's about. And hopefully, the only thing I do know is that Twitter sometimes does, like, temporary bans. Like, maybe this is not a permaban. Maybe this is, like, a 24-hour deal or, like, a 48-hour ban or a week or something. I don't know. I haven't talked to Kevin yet. He's on my face. Him and I are Facebook friends, so maybe I should go and hit him up. But then I'd have to go on Facebook, which is like not my favorite thing to do. All right. What we got next? An alien lands on your anarchist planet and says, "Take me to your leader." What do you say to them? We don't have a leader. That's what I would say. You can come to our council meeting, but I imagine, like, the concept of leader would be kind of alien. Did you change your colors? From Shannon Beat. Oh, you're talking about how this. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Something about the way that it printed. They kind of went with a more bluey shade of purple, but it's actually kind of nice. So I like it. It's kind of more cool. Because, more people, I think, would like a blue shirt than a purple shirt. So we're down. Although I love purple, as you can probably guess. Purple's like the color of the channel, and I have several purple shirts that I've probably worn in videos over the years. So purple is like my favorite color. But this one is, it maybe isn't coming out because it's like a little dark, but it's a little purpley, but it's mostly blue. Yeah. And it's blue, not purple. Wait, Argos. I know that. Okay, so far I have sold 4 shirts. I've sold 4 shirts. Two were me and my wife. 1 was a friend of mine in real life, and then the 4th one is someone I don't know. Argos, are you that 4th one? Are you the one step back shirt that I don't know where it is? Because if it is, that is awesome, and you are a baller. All right. I don't know, like alien. Okay, so alien lands on an anarchist planet, says, "Take me to your leader." What do you say to them? Oh man, how much do you make per shirt? It's about $2, but you get a shirt, which is fun. Okay. All right. How do I answer this question seriously? I would probably say that we don't have leaders in the way that you seem to think about it. We used to, but that we could probably arrange for you to meet with several people who would be invested in meeting with you, and maybe we will try to arrange for a permanent liaison or someone to speak with you, like someone whose job it is to be a diplomat in a way, because sometimes dealing with one person might be easier, but for the most part, like, there's not going to be a president for you to talk to. Sorry, mate. Okay. Yeah, I did answer that question already. Will you watch the upcoming Morbius movie? It stars an Epic Gamer as the lead. Oh boy, I don't even know how to break this one down. I don't know what Morbius is. I also don't know exactly what you mean by Epic Gamer. So I think I've failed a question on all fronts. All right, Argos, do you know any tips for getting more views on vids? I need some for my gamer channel. Example, 2 partners as people who watch the first and last episode the most. Yeah. One of the number one tips to get views on videos, especially if you do not have an audience itself, is to make stuff that searches well. So you have to kind of think of it from the viewer's perspective. If you go on, like, if you install something like TubeBuddy, which is a free Chrome plugin, you can like look up different keywords and see how competitive they are and how popular they are. And if you can find something that you want to make a video about, if you have something you want to make a video about, then you can just do it. Then make a video on that. So really, because like when you don't have an audience yourself, what you really want to do is find some search phrase that you can rank high for, and that'll be your way in. That's what I do with a lot of my content. That is like the Paris Commune video was an attempt to get a high one on that, because a lot of people are searching for the Paris Commune these days because people are getting more into leftism, and I wanted to make one that was better than the Bad Mouse video. And then so I did it. And other videos of mine that do really well are also ones that I designed for my for search for things like my videos on religions, my videos on countries. Those ones do really well because people are always searching for those things. My video on the Rwandan genocide did very well because I couldn't find a good documentary explainer. There was one that I thought was too short, and there was one, and that was the only one that was there. I think that was like epic history or feature history or something like that. And so I decided to make my own that was a bit more sensitive to the topic, because yeah, that's it. And so that's what I say. Try to find something that people will search for, that you can provide an answer for, because that's how you're gonna get started. Think about popular questions that people have and be the best and make the best answer for it. So, what's the next question we got, y'all? Suppose you could be frozen and woken up when the true communism is achieved. For the sake of argument, presume that's going to happen. Would you want to do that? Damn. It's like a would you rather from hell. The main thing is it just me? 'Cause like I have like friends and family and stuff that I like. And while we live in this neoliberal hellscape and we're on the like flaming end of the cinder of our culture, I do have people that I am very attached to that would be theoretically sad if I were to just disappear one day, to be de-thawed years after they've died, or however long in the future this true communism thing is. And if it was like when I was gonna die anyway, like a getting frozen thing, that's one I would do. If it was a situation in which I could bring Kelly, if I could bring Kelly, that would also be so Kelly can come but no one else. No, I've got friends and parents and stuff. You know, the best thing about the world, about the future, or about, you know, the world we live in, is the connections we have and the people that we love. And so I don't think I would give them up. Not even for true communism. Although it would be very reassuring if I knew that true communism was happening. Then I would know, like, you know, the end of that, like, the world's not going to end in like 100 years. In one of Ian M. Banks's books, there's a species that got around the full automation post-scarcity problem by making everyone a paid member of the military from birth. Thoughts on that idea? Well, I don't like militaries. It just sounds like an easy way to create. It just sounds like basic income, but with murder, and like being put into this authoritarian structure. No, I don't like it at all. I don't like militaries. In a perfect world, there wouldn't even be militaries. All right. Should I join the IWW if there's no union in my future workplace? You should join the IWW even if there is a union in your workplace. You should just always be joining the IWW. Why everyone forgot about Free Tibet? How long can a struggle for independence maintain support without any progress? Thinking of the Palestinian struggle not ending like Tibet. Well, there's a couple things in that. Tibet is from what I know about the Free Tibet movement, is that it's a rather, like, people had issues with it when it first happened. Definitely parts of the Buddhist clergy in Tibet are not happy with it, but it seems like I don't know what the status of it is in Tibet today. China is much better at censoring internal stuff than it is externally. I would imagine that I don't know, when it comes to like Palestine, a country that has been like, I feel like you shouldn't have to worry about Palestine ever ending up like the Free Tibet movement, because the Free Tibet movement has been Palestine has been occupied and systematically like choked for like going on its 7th decade now, and I feel like people are more aware of it, or talking more about it now than they ever were, at least in my lifetime. And so but then again, also, like, it seems like with Netanyahu, who's getting close to like a final solution to the Palestinians or something. But for the most part, finding I feel like there are different conflicts, and I can't. I'm not well versed enough in what's going on in Tibet to be able to answer that question. But I can say that I feel less worried about the possibility of us forgetting about our sisters and brothers in Gaza and in the West Bank. And I hope I'm right on that, because I would hate for this, the pain and struggle that they've been going through to be for naught. But yeah, I don't know much about what's going on in Tibet. I don't know what the Free Tibet movement's like. I don't know what the people in Tibet think. Could also be that China's policy has changed and they're less like brutal about it, or I don't know. We'll see. All right, Ariel Fernandez, thank you again for another $5 super chat. You're being a baller tonight. A federal judge ruled that 32 out of 67 Florida counties have to have Spanish language ballots starting with the 2020 primaries. That's good news. They should have Spanish language ballots available for everybody in every part of the United States. Honestly, from what I know, Canada with its French, America should have Spanish as one of its like officially recognized languages, and everything should have English and Spanish. But that's just me. I also know that there's a certain like issue of determining any official languages, which would make things difficult. So, but I mean, America has enough Spanish-speaking people in it that that Spanish should be a fairly recognized and fairly common language, and there should be things in place to have more support for bilingual signage and things like that for Spanish-speaking people. And I do think that you should teach language in school. You should teach Spanish in school, or I mean, they teach it in school, but it should be like more like a mandatory part of the curriculum. I would argue that even the one that we do here for French is insufficient, and we need a better one. Who was the most successful military leader that wasn't deposed or died of unnatural causes? So James L., who was the most successful military leader ever that wasn't deposed or died of unnatural causes? I mean, you could go... I mean, there's Alexander the Great. He died of very natural causes. Alexander the Great died of disease, like fever. I think there's some people who suspect that he was assassinated, but I thought he died of just like... He just got sick and died. If I remember correctly, too, Napoleon died of pretty natural stuff, too. He just got sick and died. And Ulysses S. Grant. Ulysses S. Grant finished the Civil War and went off to become president. I mean, he was a really bad president, but he was president. And then he died of stomach cancer. So those are all pretty solid answers. What do you think of this statement? In the 1930s, Hitler used Antifa's violent track record to pin the Reichstag bombing on them because there had been so much political violence. Already it made it more plausible. Antifa's political violence ended up hurting themselves more than it hurt the Nazis. Alright, so we're talking about like 1930s Antifa, huh? From what I remember, Antifa back then were a little bit more militant and a little bit more rowdy than they are today. Just a tad. I mean, maybe it was easy at that time, but also I would argue that because people back then were predisposed to dislike Antifa more than they like fascists, which is definitely... But if you want to like compare that to today with Antifa, I mean, Antifa today are not violent. Like, I mean, they punch Nazis, but like, you don't see Antifa walking around with like AR-15s or anything like that. Like, I don't know. Like, Antifa's not that, like, they're more, I don't know. It just seems like, I definitely think that the ill will that gets made, I mean, I'm not a person who's like, oh, we need to, like, have this kind of civility politics angle to things and say that, Antifa is, like, getting torn apart in the press, so therefore we shouldn't defend people against fascist violence. Like, that sounds like a bad combo. But also, if they started getting more militant and they started, like, punching Nazis is good. Shooting Nazis is a bit far. And shooting Nazis is going to create friends or, people who are loosely associated with Nazis to have now a personal vendetta against you and your organization. Pretty sure this is a troll. Oh, well. All right. Not sure where that went from. But yeah. I do think that when it comes to Antifa weren't violent enough, otherwise World War II wouldn't have happened. Yeah, you could definitely make that argument. And I do think that when you enter in like lethal violence into the case, you end up in a situation in which the reasons for your detractors start to have less and less to do with politics. For example, look at the story of Estonia and the Soviet Union. By the end of the Soviet Union, Estonians fucking hated the Soviets and hated communism. not because they, you know, disagreed with Marx or something like that. They hated the Soviet Union. They hated communism because fucking Stalin invaded and conquered their country and treated them like shit. And like that, like that needs to be considered in a way. But I'm not exactly sure how that translates to Antifa. It's a good kind of pushing off question now. I feel like I did not satisfyingly answer that question because I don't have a satisfying answer, honestly. Whoa. Hello. Look who... Okay. Well, now I'm the sideshow. We know what you guys came here to see. Yeah. There we go. Cat. Hey, Phoebes. So this is Phoebe, for anyone who hasn't seen her before. She is my 10-year-old tabby cat, and she's adorable. So I moved the camera down so you can get to see her more. Oh, gotta keep her comfy, though. Gato. Okay. Can we agree that Che was basically meant to be romanticized as an icon? Definitely a little bit, for sure. Especially today, the t-shirt man. I feel like the reasons why people wear Che t-shirts have very little to do with the reasons why Che went on like a, you know, a communist rampage. Okay. Building alternative structures to take care of people's needs outside of the state. What about disabled people who rely on state support and don't know how to contact the structures you're proposing? That would definitely be a thing that we would need to take care of. In my picturing of things, it would be more about making disability supports when the state starts getting rid of them, which the state keeps getting rid of. I wouldn't know how to get them to contact the organizations except for them to be prominent and for there to be a strong informal network of people. I feel like there are two things that make anarchism work, and one would be the personal relationships that people have with each other, and the second would be like the internet. There's still, like today, there's still like a horrible web of like things that are like one of the issues, like there's so many like aid programs in America that get woefully underused because they're made intentionally hard to sign up for and apply for. And I would imagine that having the ease of getting into that in a program that is not designed to be extremely austerity prone would be fine. Thoughts on the 300 plus attempts on Fidel Castro's life? It's a good sign about how good Americans are at black ops operations, that they kept trying to assassinate Fidel Castro and they kept failing. I do think it's very funny that people think that the United States, which couldn't even kill Fidel Castro, could somehow orchestrate 9/11. I think that's amusing. Controversial question: is it beneficial? Would you recommend political assassination instead of milkshaking? Oh, very controversial question. No. I feel like there's very much a if you strike me down, I shall come back stronger than you can imagine when it comes to assassination. I don't know if there's ever been a political assassination. I mean, there have been some, but like political assassinations that resulted in killing the movement that they were associated with. If anything, it usually ends up making the movement they're associated with more radical and more militant. And so, yeah. I don't think I don't think that's the way, dog. Um, would you rather live in AD 150 Roman Italy or 1150 medieval Italy? Probably 1150 medieval Italy because there's no slaves. While in 150 Roman Italy, there would be slaves. And I would not like to be a slave. Do you think any bread tubers will end up on some American government watch list for their beliefs? Doughboy DeVito, I think it's amusing that you don't think that has already happened. I'm pretty sure that we are all on lists. And like, we've had incidences where we had like people we suspected were cops showing up at like meetings and like at meetups and stuff. So like this is already like a thing. Would you consider refusing to give Super Chat questions priority on the principle that people shouldn't get priority because they have money to spend? Oh. I would like to say on that it's a stream and it's just answering questions, not like the distribution of resources. And to be honest, like, I am trying anything I can to not have to work like 70 hours a week. And if I can get to that, then that would be really great. And the people who are doing the super chats for questions for the low price of me answering their questions, they're helping me get there. And I know patrons do that on the regular. But like I feel like the stakes are low on this list. It's just questions. It's the smallest thing I can do for someone who decided to pay money for the answer to that question. Hey, if you want me to be nationalized, if you want to nationalize Step Back History, I am totally down. If you guys want the government to pay for my wage and then have me just answer all questions equally, then I will totally do that. Thoughts on Adam Smith? Will his invisible hand choke you? I had a friend who wanted me to, who we had an exchange where I got him to read The Conquest of Bread and he got me to read The Wealth of Nations. And I don't think either of us stuck with that promise. And I do think that Adam Smith is, like, for anyone who doesn't know, he's like the intellectual father of liberal capitalism. And he's bad. His ideas are malformed and very out of date, and they don't make any sense. And I think that they are in dire need of some updates. Have you heard about the guy who had a literal Panzer v Panther? What's up? All right. Have you heard of the guy who had a literal Panzer V Panther and an anti-aircraft gun in his basement? Both were unoperational. No, but that's crazy, and I love it. I mean, that guy was probably bananas, but man, what a relic. What relics to keep in your house? You'd be like, yeah, I fought in World War II. Here's this anti-aircraft gun. Like, oh boy, what a conversation starter. I mean, the Panzer I think is a little bit more of a discussion. How did he? That's the other question. How did he keep a tank in his basement? What kind of basement is this guy running? I've been to the Canadian Military Museum. I've seen tanks. They're huge. How did he get it down there? How did he get it out? There's so many questions I need to know about how this happened. He used the Panzer as a snowplow? Oh man, this guy is oh, cat time is over. Sorry guys. This guy sounds like he's a boss. Although, you know, like I feel like a snowplow is the best way to use a tank. Like if I could repurpose all of the current tanks to be snowplows, I would be very happy. Well, there you go. She's in the background, so you can still watch her smell my D&D books for some reason. Okay. I feel like we're gonna watch in slow motion something very funny happen with the cat, because she's gonna no. She decided that she doesn't think that she can crawl into my bookshelf and lie on it. I do have a plan at some point, whenever I feel like spending the money, to buy like a cat bed for right here, so that while I'm streaming and while I'm filming Quick Steps, there's a very high chance that there will be a cat here, because I know that cats drive up the engagement and everyone loves to see a cute kitty. And Phoebes is so photogenic that you would love it. All right. The American right likes to appropriate issues from the left, deep state, trade deals, dumb them down and distort them, as a result discredit them. How can the left combat that? Oh yeah, that is a good question. If I had an answer to that, I feel like that would be really good. I feel like I would be able to make a video about that would get a lot of views. Only thing that I can think of is to counter their messaging with your own messaging. Like, the only thing... Yeah, and that's not even super successful. Like, as we can see. I do think that the big thing is to take these people seriously. And try to have a distinct effort to not let them seize the language that they're trying to seize. Look how bad letting the Nazis basically take over internet memes for a bit did. But I do think that after 2016, after we, you know, in our darkest timeline, that we've learned that counter messaging and platforming are important, and that really the strong way to defeat the right when it comes to them trying to take issues from the left and sort of bastardize them into something that they don't belong with is to do your damnedest to keep them from being heard from lots of people. Because if people keep giving them platforms, they're going to keep spreading a message that is the speech equivalent of a virus that causes people to hurt others, and that is bad. So deplatforming, I think, is the big one in that, but I feel like there's probably a more elegant solution that I don't know about. Do you believe people that say that social media causes isolation are misdirecting their anger at capitalist alienation and uncomfortable at blaming capitalism? Yes. I do think that social media has... I mean, the Marxist in me says yes. There is definitely a way that people criticize people using their phones that most definitely is a dodge of a critique of capitalist alienation. That is most definitely a thing. Like the fact that, like, hey, nobody joins bowling leagues anymore. There was a book called Bowling Alone that was about that, how nobody joins bowling leagues. There's no third space no more. And then they'll blame that everyone's on their Snapchats and the Snapchats and the Discords, and that's why they're not going to the bowling league or hanging out at the bar. But the real answer is that everybody is either working too hard or doesn't have enough money to go to those things, and that's why there's no third space. But then the postmodernist in me, the McLuhanist in me, wants to add to that there is something to be said about the way that we interact with each other. The medium that we use to interact with each other affects how we interact with each other. And I do think that there is an isolation with a purely text-based communication, with a communication medium that favors winning conversations and likes and retweets and things like that, but also in the depersonalization and anonymization of identities. Sometimes that's really good for exploring identities that you do not want to make public, but it does mean that you do not see people face to face as fully human, and like I do think that there is an aspect to it that does show that. So I think that my answer to your question is yes, on both fronts. As the postmodernist, because the thing is that's the postmodern analysis, and the Marxist analysis would be the economic one, and I think that both of them are valid and they're not mutually exclusive. And I do think that you can show that with, like, the fact that the most online generation, the most social media focused generation, the Zoomers, have reported some of the lowest social, they have some of the highest rates of social anxiety. They have some of the lowest face-to-face interaction time of any group of people in history. And they seem extremely isolated and with little desire to see others. And I think that comes from shaping the sort of thing. Ariel Fernandez, thank you very much for the $2 super chat. Favorite political party in Canada? I think I would go with the NDP at the moment. I mean, as far as like favorite party to like win and like with the possibility of winning, the NDP. I think that they are the best political option we have. But if you're talking about like any political party, like even the ones that don't have seats, there's like, the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada. There's the Communist Party of Canada. I'm not sure how much I'm not sure where I would stand with them, but I think that there would be. I think that that's the thing. I think that as far as like big tent parties that have the right message, and if like of the big like 4 political parties, that I would go with the NDP. The Green Party can be good too, but they also can be bad in really strange ways. Anarcho-Fledging, can we ban old people saying baller? I say baller a lot. Am I an old? Am I not allowed to say baller? How old do you have to be to say baller? What is the maximum age of being allowed to say baller? That will inform my answer. Logan Anderson, JFK, who shot him in Dallas? Oh, that would be a former Marine by the name of Lee Harvey Oswald. Next question. What if Reagan and Thatcher came back from the graves and came to save Canada? What would you do? Reagan and Thatcher came back from the grave to save Canada. I would go for my wooden stake very soon. If you're older than 23, you can't say baller. Ah, shit. Well, then I can't say baller anymore. That's so unballer. When it comes, if Reagan and Thatcher tried to save Canada, I would go and get my wooden stake. People keep saying harsh abortion laws will take us back to the Dark Ages. How acceptable / unacceptable was abortion in the early Middle Ages? It was not unacceptable at all. In the Middle Ages, they still in some places practiced infanticide. If you're talking about Europe specifically, Christian theology back then was of the thought that you were born with original sin, and so babies, especially unbaptized babies, were not really people, or if they were kind of evil, because they hadn't gone to confession enough. They hadn't atoned for the sins of Adam and Eve yet. The whole anti-abortion thing is really a 20th century phenomenon. It was a reactionary backlash against birth control movements. But people have been aborting babies as long as people have been making babies. Through various different ways, including very common infanticide in our history. So honestly, people didn't give a shit about abortion back then. What would really the really big example of what harsh abortion laws would take us back to, or would move to, is Romania, Ceausescu's Romania, because in Romania, Ceausescu, he had passed not only a really harsh ban on abortions, but also severely restricted birth control. And if anyone remembers from when the Ceausescu regime collapsed, that one of the most horrifying things that came out of it was these orphanages. Just that, like, the entire Romanian system of orphanages was so overloaded and so understaffed, and just like babies that had not gotten any personal attention, no toys, they kind of just stared into space for like months and months and months, and like their brains were seriously damaged from this. And like, yeah, if you want to know what a not abortion world looks like, go read about what happened in Romania when it comes to the orphanages. Did you know that Amazon has gamified its warehouses? You get points depending upon how fast you work. It's literally pure evil. Oh, yes, I know. My sister works for an Amazon warehouse, and she loves it, which is weird. But then again, she's not exactly a normal person. So, but I have heard how all of it works, and it is terrifying. Because even then, she's doing like the sort of Canadian version, because Canada has a few more labor laws than the United States. And it's gross. Yeah, you hear stories in America of like people like peeing in jars and stuff, and it's like, ugh. Do you think language education will function in anarcho-communism? Yeah. I think education would do better in anarcho-communism, because if you didn't have an education system that was based on pushing you through a factory line so that you could quickly get to using your productive time to do work, then yeah, like if we taught education as a lifelong thing that you did for enjoyment and for self-enrichment, then I think that you'd get better at language, because language is one of those things. It's like mathematics, where really if you don't 100% understand one concept, you're going to have issues with the next concept. And in language studies, languages require a lot of practice and a lot of immersion, which is not something that most schools have time for. And so in my mind, anarcho-communist language education would be a lot more immersive, a lot more personal, and I think they would work a lot better. Because people wouldn't be forced into doing it, which is nice. Ariel Fernandez, I believe, thank you for the $5 super chat. Much appreciated. Holy moly. I don't even know how to process all this sometimes. I believe that the rest of the 49 state legislatures would become unicameral legislators and not be bicameral legislators like the state of Nebraska. All right. That would work. I think that I don't even know how state senates even function. I'm not a big fan of senates in general, so I would be totally behind you on that one. I did not know that Nebraska did not have a state senate. That's interesting. All right. What you said about the bourgeoisie trying to maintain capitalism in spite of 95% of people turning against it, would that necessitate the bourgeoisie turning to dictatorship? I mean, yeah. I mean, they kind of already are. We're kind of hitting that point where they have to, and that's why people like Donald Trump and like Viktor Orban and like Javier Bolsonaro and like all those people are getting elected. What do you think this is all about? Besides, like, or it's like America, where like the bourgeoisie basically owns the government, and that virtually nobody with power is not a millionaire, and is not, or does not serve millionaires exclusively. The whole payola system in the United States is very much designed for that to happen. Like they've already done it. They've already won. if you think that your vote means shit, it don't. It's not a conspiracy. It's just that, like, I mean, your vote means shit. It's just like they're trying to bank on people to become downtrodden, and if you have money, your vote, much like your chat question, means much more. That was a joke. That was a joke. It was a joke. It was a joke. All questions matter. Hashtag all questions matter. Okay. What about having a second language to mandatory taught in school, not just Spanish? I'm in favor of that. Yeah, second languages are great. Second languages are awesome. I think that they enrich, first of all, they enrich your perspective on the world. They let you read and experience other cultures. And they also let you think differently. Anybody here in the chat, if you're bilingual or trilingual or whatever, I'm sure that you know that the way that you think, like thinking in those languages, changes the way you think about things. And so I feel like learning at least a second language helps you have perspective. I speak like 3 languages. One of them not very well, but I still can like form sentences and have conversations in 3 languages. And I have learned a lot from the 3 languages I know. And I would really like, my future goal is to someday, when I have some time, to actually learn my 4th language and to learn a language that is a little bit more outside of the European consensus. I really want to learn Arabic, and so I would love to break out of that and see what happens, because I think that it'd be interesting to understand a language that is of a completely different linguistic root than the ones I speak now. What you said about building new systems, couldn't that just lead to a future where everyone has their needs provided by their communes, but still has to fear the remnant state harming them? Well, my hope is that the quote-unquote remnant state would become kind of irrelevant if they're not getting their corporation money and if they're not getting their tax money on things, that it would kind of wither away. I'm not sure if that's how things would play out, but it would definitely be a process. And maybe when the state is weakened to a certain point, then it can just kind of... who knows? Thoughts on the Kamehameha dynasty in Hawaii? Was that not the last... Because King Kamehameha was like... Not... Because like the last monarch of Hawaii was Queen Liliuokalani or something like that. I don't know if she was of the same dynasty as King Kamehameha. But I definitely think it's... I think that's an oft untold story in American history about the Kingdom of Hawaii and how the United States, in its fashion, because this is the thing the United States does did a lot in a lot of its history, where a bunch of Americans show up in a place unannounced, then they start settling down, and then when enough of them show up in a region, they then say, hey, we want to become American and become a state. And then the U.S. military comes in to enforce that. That's what happened with, that's how, what's it called? That's how the Texas Revolution happened. That's really how the Mexican-American War got started. And that's how Hawaii got annexed. Hawaii was annexed by sugar plantation owners. And the indigenous Hawaiians were super duper screwed. As far as like the details on the Kamehameha dynasty and like the history of like pre-American Hawaii, you're asking the wrong person on that one. But you know, it's cool. I think that Hawaii is one of the coolest states that does not get a whole lot of attention. The fact that my wife is a citizen of a country that has such a cool place like Hawaii in it makes me very sad, because we should be there. We should not be here. We should be there. Especially because Hawaiians love Spam, and I am like one of like 6 people on the planet who love Spam that are not from Hawaii and Korea. And I would love to go to a place where Spam and eggs is a common breakfast thing you can get. That would make me so happy, and it would make Kelly so mad. Man, it makes me want Spam. They sell Spam downstairs. Now I'm going to be thinking about it all night. Spam is not allowed in this house. Little does she know, there has been Spam in this house before. Okay. Sausage, eggs, sausage, and Spam. Yes! Spam, egg, sausage, spam, 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 and spam. Exactly. I love Spam. I don't know why. Have you tried Spam musubi? No, I have not. Okay. Do you think that most Americans are opposed to communism and socialism because it's the only type of government that they've been exposed to is Soviet-style communism? Yes, very specifically, and also the propaganda and the violence that was used to officially destroy the left in America. I did a video on it. You can check it out. It's actually one of the most popular. It's one of the most popular YouTube videos on my channel. Is why is there no American left wing? That sort of talks about how through a propaganda effort and through literal suppression, like literally if you joined a socialist party, you could find yourself before HUAC and blackballed from your career and like kicked out of the state government and things like that. Through those efforts, they very efficiently not only destroyed the lives of every left-wing person in America, or a lot of left-wing people in America, but they were also very effective at launching a propaganda campaign that said that communists are evil people who want to take over and that capitalism's great. Like the whole 50s propaganda film, very strong, very powerful, and a lot of boomers especially still feel it very personally. What do you think about the ethics of castrating pets? Well, let's just say castrating pets is a much more ethical thing to do than having to gas the excess population of pets. There's a reason why every humane society and pound will tell you to spay and neuter your pets, because if you don't, the population of these animals that we've transplanted to these areas gets out of control, and they end up having to euthanize a lot of pets. And I think that if many animals were given the choice between castration and death, that this would be the one they have. Declawing on the other hand is not ethical. This is true. I would not intentionally declaw a cat. Phoebe is declawed, but we got her that way. Or should I say, I got her that way, and Kelly's dad forced her to do it to live in his house for a year, and she needed to live there. Why shouldn't government give grants to educational YouTubers? Well, Gaduriv, they might. I'm trying. I just applied for a grant coach. I applied for a grant coach recently, and I hope that she takes me on, because I have a pitch for a video series that I could get funding for. What is your education? All right, Jeffrey Stockham. My education is, all right, how do I get started? I graduated high school with a D- average. That's something I don't think I've said very often. I think I said it once in that video I did on the Prussian school system. Mostly because I have ADHD, but because I had ADHD and also because People had a hell of a time diagnosing me with it. I didn't get diagnosed until I was in my mid-20s. So I was considered just lazy and bad at doing things. And so I graduated high school with a D-minus average, which of course means I wouldn't be able to go to university. There's no standardized testing in Canada, so there's no you can't just barely pass high school and then ace your SATs and get into university. Very much it was like your average in your last 2 years is really what they go by. So when I finished high school, I went to a private college for audio engineering and record producing. And I spent 12 months doing that. And all year round, summer semester happened as well. And I flunked out because it really wasn't my thing and I was doing pretty bad. And so when that was done, this was probably like the end of 2007 was basically when I dropped out. Fall end of December 2007. So then dawn of 2008, I had my entire life destroyed. I was 19 I was 19 years old, and all of my life's plans had just been smashed, and I had no idea what to do with my life. And so I got a job as an inventory clerk. When I was an inventory clerk, that inventory clerk job might have been one of the worst jobs I ever had. It was terrible in so many ways, but if you want me to go into it, I can. But basically, I had this really shitty job in 2008, and with no knowledge about what to do next, I was like, I guess if I want to do any post-secondary education and do any job that doesn't require just high school, I went to night school. I went to night school. My first thought. So this is January, February of 2008. I had a part-time job as an inventory clerk. And I was going to night school for English, but also I was, this was when I was just starting on YouTube. And this is when I got really into the new atheist movement. And so at that point, I actually thought I wanted to become an evolutionary biologist. I thought that was what I wanted to do. And so I was also going to this go at your own pace day school for to get my math grades up and my science grades up so that I could apply to go to university for biology. That died real quick. And so instead of doing that, because that would have had me going to night school and day school just to upgrade my high school marks for another year, and I was already 19, and I was like, no, this ship has sailed, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to hold an interest in something like biology for that long. So I went to a program that they do called General Arts and Science. And it's hosted at community colleges, and it's specifically designed for people who have low grades in high school but want to go to university. So how it works is, if you can go to this program, it's a 2-year program. It takes a variety of different courses, and if you get a certain GPA or a certain percentage, we don't really use GPA here. If you get a certain percentage average, you get automatically accepted into university, and they have a handful of universities they made deals with it. And so I did that, and then I was going to go to university for sociology. I was going to do a sociology degree, and when I was doing my application to Bishop's, which is the university I went to for my undergrad, I just happened to be listening to just happened to be getting into hardcore history. By the way, so this is stepping forward. I went to school at the September of 2008, and I went to the end of like the spring of 2010 is when I graduated. So this is like Christmas time of 2009. So when I applied to university, I applied for history just because I was like, you know what? Like, I'm listening to hardcore history. I'm really into it. And then I realized, like, I've always been interested in history. I was always taking history classes in high school. I went on a lot of road trips as a kid where I saw a lot of the United States. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to I'm going to go to school for university. Or I'm going to go to university for history. So I did a history major, and then I went to university. I was a freshman at the age of 21, 22, very soon into my first semester at my freshman year. And I did a 3-year bachelor's of arts with honors in history. Then I went to grad school at the University of Western Ontario, which is in London, Ontario. So Bishops is in Quebec, so I lived in Quebec for 3 years. And then I moved to London, Ontario, where I did a master's degree in American Cultural Studies, where I did a variety of courses on American politics, American culture, and all sorts of stuff like that. And I did a master's thesis on Islamophobia in post 9/11 United States. And when I finished that, or when I was getting close to the end of that, I applied for PhDs in history. That was my plan, is to go into history as my PhD. Got rejected across the board, so because I applied to a bunch of American schools, and they didn't take me. So I applied for a master's of history at Western, because I had pretty good connections with the history department at Western. I got accepted, and I did a second master's degree at Western in history, and I did really well. I had a good time. That was a good year. Did my second thesis on the rebuilding of the World Trade Center after 9/11, and the sort of story about how to rebuild such a impressive tower. So I learned a lot about Larry Silverstein and what's the hell's his name now? The like weird crystal guy. He's like an architect. And after I finished that, I made pretty good connections with a couple professors there, and I had a project I wanted to work on. They seemed interested in it, so I applied for a PhD in history at Western, and I got in, and I did it for I started that in like the fall of 2015, and I started Step Back like that month. The first month of my PhD, I started Step Back, and then Step Back started becoming more of a part of my life. It started becoming more of the dominant thing, and it was more. I really didn't have much of an interest in the sort of really tough push, like what's it called? The sort of uphill grind of becoming a history professor. It's really, really tough and getting tougher. And so I didn't really want to do that. I really wanted to get into public communication. I even said on my application that I wanted to be more of a public figure. And Step Back was doing so well that I decided to, and I was not making much progress on my dissertation, so I dropped out of my PhD in the spring of 2018. And I've just been working ever since. So you asked what my education is, and I gave you my life story. I hope that was satisfying for you. Ariel, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. May I send you a song request? I just want your opinion on the song intro music. You don't have to listen to it now. I'll DM it to you. Yeah, DM it to me afterwards. I don't want to get another copyright claim on my stream, so I can't listen to it here with you right now. But I'll definitely listen to it. I don't know what my opinion would be, but I'll definitely take a listen. Some random geek. What was worst time for the U.S. government or presidency lied to its people on the purpose of going to war in the military operations in foreign countries? All right. What was worst time? The U.S. and or president lied to its people for the purpose of going to war and have military operations in foreign countries. Or what? Like, are you talking about like the Bush era of faking their way into the Iraq War? That was pretty bad. Yeah. And America's doing it again with Iran, and that's going to be way more of a disaster. So, yeah. I don't know what to say to that. I don't know how to answer that question. Globalization, anyone? From Logan Anderson. I like globalization in the sense that I like I like globalization in the sense that, like, I like an interconnected world where people from all over the place are moving around, and we have a very diverse and growing society. Globalization in the, like, free movement of capital to create a global race to the bottom for who can do the cheapest labor, less good. I think that is a bad. And that's usually what globalization means, which means it's not my favorite idea. But, it is what it is. When you have children, will you exercise control over them, or will you run your family as a democratic commune, i.e. where both parents and kids design everything democratically? I am definitely going to be pro-democratic commune, and definitely about, like, guiding children rather than commanding them. I imagine there's going to be a tension because, sometimes children don't know what they're talking about, but we shall see. I would like for children to have as much of a say in how families work as you can let them. I feel like that's a good thing to do. Teaches them good lessons. Favorite meme ideology? Definitely Posadism. Posadism is my favorite meme ideology. The whole UFO thing just nails it for me. When I jokingly explained my genocide virus communist baby idea to my mother, she said, even if we were taught to be communists from birth, humans' selfishness would ruin it. Your response? That is a common thing that people say. That is basically but human nature argument. And I would say that anthropology has taught us quite the opposite, that whatever human nature is, it's very plastic, and that selfishness is something that is taught. It's not something you're born with. We have seen cultures that have zero concept of the self, that have zero concept of possession as a thing. And so it's very it's been demonstrated through various anthropological studies that a lot of what we associate as, quote, human nature is not. Do you think gaming developers unions can form today? There's definitely a serious movement to do it. I don't know a whole lot about the state of the field of video games, because right now I know it's pretty exploitative, but if enough people did, I imagine it's something. It's an industry. It's a creative industry. I imagine it's something that could happen. Especially because right now they're in a situation where the people who make video games get so much money. Like, video games are so profitable. But the people who work on video games don't really reap the benefit of that. Thank you, Ariel, for the $2 super chat saying that you sent me the song. I'll check it out after the stream is done. Whew. Gotta keep a nice cranial massage. I think I'm getting headaches again. Do you think the anti-abortion push is to provide stock for the upcoming free baby market? Oh, God. Terrifying. The anti-abortion stuff is really spooky. We all know what it is. They want to find out which state is going to be on the state versus United States historical Supreme Court decision which bans abortion. They just want to know what state it's going to be, and so there's like a race to see who gets to have their name right next to like, Plessy v. Ferguson and such, which I think is ridiculous. But here we are. This is the thing that's happening. This is 2019 for some reason. My God, there's 40 of you here. It's awesome. Where are we? Be gay, do crimes. Yeah, it's a pretty good life lesson. Be gay, do crimes. How did your parents react when you told them you were a communist? Ha! I remember when I was a very young lad, my mother saying that if I was a communist, that I'd get kicked out of the house. And then I became a communist, and then I didn't get kicked out of the house. So my parents, like my parents didn't super care. They're not really all that political. When I told them that, like, what my ideas were, they kind of just got over it. Like, there was never like a clash. There was never like a war or anything like that. They don't particularly care. They didn't see, like, you know, as long as you keep your studies up, whatever. Like, they've never really given me guff for it, I should say. Screw it. I've been curious about how one takes the step to get a diagnosis for ADHD. I wanted to get help. So when I got, how I got my diagnosis for ADHD is I always suspected I had it. And when, in the summer of my first master's degree, when I was working on my thesis, I was like, all right, I really need to take charge of my organizational life, because the coursework during my during my master's, my first master's, I was a disorganized mess and I just was doing poorly. So I went to see a psychologist, and the school had a psychologist that I could go see. And I told her that I had ADHD, that I feel like I have ADHD and I have focus issues. And so what she did is she also happened to be a researcher of ADHD. So she was interested in studying it. So she signed me up for this day-long series of tests. It's an intelligence test. I think my wife knows about the name of it. Do you know the name of this the test?
Was it the WAIS?
Yeah.
Yeah, the WAIS.
So it's called the WAIS test, apparently, and it was a series of different intelligence tests, and basically it's figuring out where you're, like, it's all percentile based. And so I did a bunch of different tests of different types of intelligences to see where I stood. And then when the results came back, what she saw was that on the test, in certain areas, I was doing really well. In one area, I did really, really well. But then in some other areas that were focus issue, like short-term memory and on quantitative reasoning, on those parts of your of my WAIS test, I did poorly, and like it was significant. Like for verbal intelligence, I was in the 99.8th percentile, and then on like quantitative intelligence, I was like in the 33rd percentile. So that shows that I had significant deficiencies when it came to things that had to do with focus. And that was enough for her to say that I had attention deficit hyperactive disorder, primary and attentive. So I was, she did that. And then what she claimed, though, is that because that she did not recommend that I get medication, or that it was not a thing that she thought I needed, but it was a thing that I could pursue if I wanted. So instead, and the reason I think she didn't want me to pursue medication is because of the other things that she proposed. Ariel Fernandez, thank you very much for the $2 super chat. United Front is what we love. Well, thank you. Much appreciated. So when I took this test, or is that the thing when I was talking about how I was a case study, is one of the things that she was interested in was she wanted me to study something called bioneural feedback therapy. And she was experimenting with it, and she wanted me to be a test subject for it. So in the year afterwards, I went through a lot of personal restructuring and learned about how to handle my disability, how to deal with different aspects of having focus issues. I learned how to get used to, if I need to read a large text and I can get it digitally, getting used to text-to-speech type stuff. And I still use that quite a bit. If there's like a dense article that I'm not enjoying reading but I need to read, I will get an audio version of it because it'll help me focus on it. And stuff like getting things done and getting way more into checklists and things like that, because this was also around the time that the podcast Hello Internet was starting, and I was hearing a little bit about getting things done. So I was starting to get into that. And then also I started the bioneural feedback therapy. And bioneural feedback therapy we did for about like 8 months. And what that was it's a way of training your brain to be like, okay, so like there's this thing that's going on in neuroscience right now, where there was this idea that a lot of people studied the nervous system as a biochemical system. And what this kind of new wave of neuroscience was trying to look more at the nervous system as an electrical system, a biochemical electrical system. And so what they did is they compared a lot of people's EEGs, I think that the colloquial term would be called brain waves. They compared those to people who have different types of disorders with people who have regular functioning brains. And this works for a whole bunch of different disorders, like depression and anxiety and all sorts of other conditions. Even for maximizing performance, like there's stories of hockey teams doing this and stuff like that. And what they do is, when you have ADHD, the issue is that different types of brain waves are too active, and that ADHD people need to learn how to calm down their brain. So, you get put into this EEG. So they hook up your brain to electrodes. So I would get wires coming out of my head. And you would look at a screen. And the only thing you needed to do, because it was all unconscious, is you had to look at the screen. And all she would tell you was, when you hear beeps, that means it's going well. That means that your brain is doing what we want you to do. And so with that association, you started to unconsciously get better and better at doing it. And I did that for about 8 months. And I remembered it having quite a good effect. I think it's a thing though that the effect isn't permanent. It's one of those things that you have to keep doing, and I stopped doing it. But I remembered having some very strong moments of lucidity because of the bioneural feedback therapy, and she was experimenting with it. So I was always going in and getting free psychiatric treatment, which who gets to have that anymore? Yeah. There you go. That's my whole ADHD thing. Have you heard of social fascism, the belief that social democracy is a variant to fascism? Nope. This is the first I've heard of it. But thank you very much for the $5 super chat, Ariel. You're a saint. Oh boy. Thoughts on Hillary Clinton becoming starting the Obama as a Muslim meme? Trust me, I used to say that a lot during the 2016 election. I was not a fan of Hillary Clinton. Never have been. She's always been a hawkish neoliberal person who would do like some of the most underhanded political things in order to get ahead. In Barack Obama's case, she floated racist conspiracy theories and basically tried to use anti-black racism to sow doubt in Obama's capacity to lead. But on top of that, in the 2016 election, she basically through like the Clinton enemies list and through like funding things, basically shut down any serious contender for running for president. If you remember that, anybody who wasn't Hillary Clinton who was running were not exactly like the mainstays of the Democratic Party. So she had the whole Democratic machine under her control, and anyone knew that anyone who ran against her would basically have their political careers ruined until Sanders happened. And that was awesome. And this is kind of why an outsider is a good thing, not a bad thing. And not even being a Democrat was actually a bonus, and I think it still is. So, yeah, the fact that she's the one who started the Obama's a Muslim conspiracy theory is something that we should, it's something we should definitely mention. It's definitely something we shouldn't forget. But also, Hillary Clinton doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot these days. So, why give her shit for like stuff that isn't relevant anymore? What's done is done, and now she can wander in the woods and, I don't know, go get paid $1 billion to go talk to a bank or whatever. I don't give a shit what she does anymore. As long as she stays far away from politics, it's all that matters. If she tries to run for president again, I'll start a fucking GoFundMe campaign to pay her into not running for president. And if she tries to get her idiot child Chelsea to run again too, or to run for Congress or something, I will also try to GoFundMe to keep her from running for politics, because I just don't want any more Clintons. There's been too many of them. They've already had such a detrimental impact on American politics. Just go away. Go be old people somewhere. And don't try to make Chelsea a thing. Why did Tabby flash on the screen? Oh, I think I don't really know how all this Streamlabs stuff works, but it's a thing when I get either subscribers or when I get super chats. But I think I messed it up because it used to look normal and you'd be able to read it, but now it's just like this weird flash that shows up. It's going to show up in a second because I just got a super chat again. Because Ariel Fernandez, holy moly, you are a magical being. Yeah, there you go. So I gotta figure out how to make that better, but I haven't made the effort to like mess around with the program, and I always think to do it like 10 seconds before I'm about to start streaming. So it was a belief supported by Stalin. Well, there you go. Yeah, I think I've got Tabby for subscribers and I've got Gritty for super chats. Although I don't know why I would have a thing for when I get subscribers on my channel. I feel like I should get rid of that. All right. The Secular Talk guy says he thinks the Democrats should refrain from talking about race and gender and only talk about class when running in the South. Thoughts on that idea? Well, judging how, I think that there is a defeating strategy in that. It really depends upon who you're talking to. Like, the South's not a monolith. Talking about class in the South is a good idea when you're talking to white people, but the South there's a lot of black people in the South, and there's a lot of black people in the Democratic Party, and if you don't address issues of race in the states where the most black people are, you're going to have a hard time. Just saying. I don't think that's a solid strategy. I think that we need to have a broader discussion about how sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia are all rooted. Like, there's nothing essential about it. There's nothing biological about it. That these are not, these should not be separate causes in competition with each other, but these are things that should be collected together under a banner of working towards a more fair and just world. But I think that's what a lot of or that's what, at least that's what Sanders does. I don't think there's any other people who are really doing that super well. But there are people who make six figures, live in New York City, and call themselves wonks, who will keep writing articles, extremely disingenuous articles, about why that's bad for some reason. And that's just going to keep happening. This is the same batch of brain geniuses who predicted that Hillary Clinton was going to win in 2016, and at the same time also they're now writing articles about why Bernie Sanders is bad because he mentioned a stereotype when he said, like, he was doing a public access TV show in like the 80s or whatever, and was talking to a group of children about stereotypes, and he mentioned to them, like, when I was a kid, they used to say that black people were like this, and Jewish people were like this, and Irish people were like this. And that has been interpreted by very disingenuous media sources to say, Bernie Sanders says all Irish people are drunks. And it's like, oh God, come on. That is like next level shitty. Ooh, Christine Einvarg. It's your first stream. That's awesome. Welcome, Christine. Welcome to the stream. You are welcome. I hope that everyone makes you feel like this is your home. And sorry for butchering that last name. I am picturing some sort of, it seems like it might be Scandinavian or something. Einvarg. That sounds Christine with a K. I don't know. Did you know that Kaiser Wilhelm II was really Muslim friendly and said that if he had been born without a religion, he probably would have turned out to be a Muslim? I did not know that. That's kind of cool. Germany did have a pretty strong relationship with the Ottoman Empire, so now that makes sense. What's your opinion on Jimmy Peanut Carter? He is the best ex-president America's ever had. He wasn't super great as president, but he's been a great former president. I love a lot of the work he's done after being president. And I heard he went into surgery for like his hip or something recently, but I didn't hear if he turned out to be okay. He's in his 90s now, so like anytime one of those things happen, you got to be a little bit terrified. It's Swedish. Okay. Well, there is a video I did about a month or two ago with the literal Nordic model Mia Mulder, and we talk a lot about Sweden in that video. So if you wanna hear a lot of Sweden stuff, there you go. He still builds the fucking Mad Lad. Yeah, it's true. Jimmy Carter does like Habitat for Humanity, and he's like really he's like in his 90s. Like, oh my god, he's such a magic person. Guess who? Oh, Ariel, thank you very much for the $5 super chat. Do you think a military coup would ever happen in the United States of America? Anyways, I have to go see next week or maybe earlier. All right, Ariel, thank you so much for all of the many, many super chats. You have made my evening. Holy moly. Will military coup ever happen in the United States of America? It's possible. I would not say it's impossible. Military leaders in America are very powerful. America's got some very... Hoa!
What the heck?
I'm gonna be like in the middle of some sort of... This is like some secret money laundering operation that I don't know about. Holy crap, Ariel. I don't even know anymore. Thank you so much. You're a magical Floridian. All right, what was I going to talk about? My brain. Yes, military. It could happen here, happen in here. America Oh yeah, America. I think that America could definitely happen. Or that a military coup in America could happen if a president was extremely unpopular and the democratic institutions of the United States had further degraded. Like if Joe Biden wins the 2020 election and then loses the 2024 election to like I don't know, Tom Cotton or something, then yeah, I think that you would think that like, oh yeah, the American institutions have been sufficiently degraded to the point where a military coup could definitely happen. But the civil society of America is surprisingly robust, and I think that it would take. I think that it would take further erosion, which that's the direction America's moving. So it definitely could happen. Oh look, my mom's in the chat. Hi, Mom. Hi. Oh yeah, Doughboy DeVito, you said you saw somebody give a $100 super chat in a ContraPoint stream. The craziest stream, or the craziest super chat I ever saw was, it was when I was doing So That Happened. For those who don't know what So That Happened is, it was a stream, it was a weekly stream that we did for a while with myself, Cody from the Alternate History Hub, and and Emperor Tiger Star. And that stream had huge numbers, like thousands of people were watching the stream. It was like nothing like I'd ever seen before. It was such like a gobsmacking experience every time we did that show, to watch like the chat just like blasting by and like 1,000 people in there. And one time some guy dropped like a $500 super chat, and we all were like, is that real? Like, we honestly thought that somebody had like accidentally put like an extra 0 or 2 zeros in there, and we were like we actually wrote to him being like, are you sure? And he was sure, and we were like, it was so strange. But yeah, quick talk about communism. So now that my mom is in the chat, somebody asked me, there you go. Somebody said like, because I remember the story when you told me that you'd kick me out of the house if I was a communist, and then I became one, and you didn't kick me out of the house. So I win. That was the story. This is going to get all sorts of weird now. Okay, where were we? We were talking about Iran. Yeah. Let's talk about something less controversial and talk about Iran. What are your thoughts on the possibility of the U.S. going to war with Iran right now? Well, they're definitely trying. Right, like definitely like a lot of the same beats of the lead up to the war in Iraq are happening again. Definitely. The thing, though, that's different between Iraq and the United States is that the United States is currently bogged down in 2 forever wars. And on top of that, so the U.S. is bogged down in a bunch of wars that they can't afford even now. And there was, even though it was, ill-conceived, there was an idea that the U.S. could actually very easily topple Saddam Hussein's government, which they did. They did not anticipate an insurgency like they got. Iran is a very different story. A lot of people think that, like, Iran is going to be like Iraq. That, like, Iraq was a lot like Syria, a sort of fragile government held up by a hardcore, like, Tito-esque dictator who was keeping several different ethnic groups under one iron fist and one authoritarian regime. And it was pretty easy to see that he was pretty unpopular and things fell apart. It was also a very diplomatically isolated and very not well-off government. The Iraqi military defected very fast, and on top of that, they had extremely old munitions. Like, I think they were using tanks from the 70s and stuff like that in the war against the United States when they did Operation Iraqi Freedom. That's not Iran. That is not Iran at all. Iran is a country that has strong alliance with Vladimir Putin. It is a country that it has a very modern, very robust military, including the Immortals, which are borrowed from their Persian Empire past the name, but they are a very elite military. So the Iranian military is nothing close to like what was faced with Iraq. They have oil, they have resources, they have allies. There is no, and also, unlike with the Iraq war, the international community is not going to be with the United States. So a war with Iran would be one of the most suicidal things that the U.S. could do. It is not a war that can win. But, and so, if we were living with normal people with normal brains running countries, the U.S. would not go to war because it's a tactically insane decision to make. But we don't live in a normal world. We live in a Trump world. And Trump is just going to do things. And he's like been systematically eliminating everybody who's not a sycophantic yes man from his cabinet. So if the US entered into like a positively suicidal war against Iran, with the second most powerful nuclear armed country on earth, the Russian Federation, as one of Iran's allies, what happens? I don't know. I certainly hope that anybody goes to the president and says, please no, this can't happen. That's my hope. That is my hope. Oh, man. Ooh. People are talking about Indian food? Do like me some Indian food. So, yeah. Iran. Iran terrifies me. I'm hoping that something stops this kind of march towards war. The other thing too is, yeah, Iran is like backing like Hezbollah, I think, is there. They do fund like unofficial like militant groups in various conflict regions in the Middle East, because Iran is also not like Iraq in that Iran is a regional power, and they have regional allies. Like there's kind of like a Cold War going on in the Middle East between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And so they have like influence in different places. And so like, it would be a much, much more devastating conflict for the United States. And the possibility of going nuclear is not impossible. Because that kind of a war, that kind of unwinnable war, would pressure the United States into using their nuclear arsenal. And if the United States starts using its nuclear arsenal, Iran is allies with Russia, and Vladimir Putin would have to decide if protecting his ally is worth using nuclear weapons. And in that case, that's devastating. Let's just hope that doesn't happen. Let's hope that that I just did not put that out in the universe, you know? All right. Will you push your beliefs on your children, or will you let them choose for yourself? For the most part, I would hope that I would probably let them choose their politics for themselves. I would hope that I would raise my kids to be benevolent and generous enough that they would become leftists. I feel like if my kids became like alt-righters, that I would have taught them wrong. That I would have made them into, that I taught them to become bad people. A podcaster I like says that the evangelicals were willing to vote for a Mormon in 2012 proves the religious right is a political movement, not a religious movement. Do you agree? Yes. Ariel, you're back. Oh my goodness. Thank you for the $10 super chat. I'm so sorry, but I forgot this one. Evren, Turkey, was hailed as a hero at the time of the coup for ending fighting between rightists and leftists that had left some 5,000 people dead. Well, that's nice. Evren. Who is Evren? Evren bracket Turkey. Well, I do like the ending of fighting between rightists and leftists. I mean, that sounds like a very much like I would rather if the leftists won, but I would take that. You know me, good old pacifist boy here. Whoa, we have a kitty. Hey, look at that, Errol Fernandez. You've just summoned a cat. How you doing, girl? Yeah, she jumped onto my desk. So I was like, oh, hi. Aw. She's very cute. And I know that she's the real star of the show. So, a podcaster says that evangelicals are willing to vote for a Mormon in 2012 shows that the religious right is a political movement, not a religious movement. Do you agree? Yes. I do think that the religious right has been a political movement. There's actually a history to this. I think it was in the 1960s, I want to say. Because there was a long time where evangelicals kept very much out of politics. I know. Sounds weird. But there was, the separation of church and state was really strong. But also evangelicals were like Christians believed that we should not muddy our spiritual development by getting involved in government things. But then there was in the late 60s, there was definitely a movement to push for evangelicals and the religious right to become more of a political force, even if it meant they had to pay taxes. And it coalesced into a legitimate political movement. You saw it probably at its high watermark with Jerry Falwell and that kind of period. And there was actually a time around then when evangelicals didn't really care about abortion. Abortion, until the late 60s, abortion was an issue Catholics cared about. Catholics didn't like birth control, and they didn't like abortion. And it was again, I mean, this is a little less strange, but a lot of Protestant evangelicals were we're not going to make common cause with Catholics. They're strange and weird and European and whatever. And then on the abortion issue, evangelicals started getting involved with the abortion issue and made common cause with Catholics. And the religious right kind of became a thing. Can we get a collab with Kelly on the history of IQ tests and how they have changed, debunking the way the right portrays them? Does that sound like fun to you, Kelly?
We could do that.
She said we could do that if we want. I'll have to look into it. I'll do some keyword research, see if that's a thing that would play well in the sticks. I did do one on scientific racism, so it'd be an interesting follow up to that. I wonder if it would I feel like maybe. Goddamn. Ariel. Oh man, you're making my night. We hang one from the right and we hang one from the left. Evren, former Turkish general. I don't exactly remember the quote, but that was something like that. Well, what do you know? I'm learning about Turkey tonight. Last week it was Cuba. Now it's Turkey. I am learning a lot. Ariel wants me to learn more history. I think that is clear. And he wants you to learn more history because by giving me super chats, he is getting me more resources to be able to make more and better videos for you guys. So think about it that way. It does sound rather like radical centrism. Yeah. All cats are leftists. I know. Should we deport Bush? No thanks, Sirloin. I feel like there's enough. I feel I feel like the Bushes are fine with there. The Bushes should not be deported. They should just be in prison. At least George W. should be. Jeb has not had the charisma to do anything of note, so that's fine. Except, I guess, like, rig the 2000 election, but, you know. Ariel has probably sent almost $100. He has probably sent over $100 at this point. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Yeah, this is like... Yeah. And also it's American money, which means it's like extra money because I'm Canadian and our dollar sucks. Will you do an in-depth look at the fall of communism considering this is the 30th anniversary of the Year of Miracles? I don't have one planned for this year. I have most of the videos I want to do this year already planned out. So probably not. I did do a video on the fall of communism back in 2017 that you can find. It was part of a series I did with Cypher, the Cynical Historian, on global revolutions. So if you want to go look at that one, I did a video on the fall of communism called like something like How the Communist World Collapsed or something like that. It's from early 2017. You could probably find it. Or Kelly can find it and put a link in the chat. Tristan, would you eat the rich if they were cooked in the curry to avoid food poisoning? Hell yeah. Eat the rich. Bash their butts. If your kids became ANCAPs, would you disown them? I mean, you like your kids even if they are shitty. If they were ANCAPs, I feel like they would... Oh, there we go. F for the cat. I would not I feel like my kid would need to do something pretty terrible for me to disown them. Being an ANCAP's pretty bad, but I would hope that I would more blame myself for not teaching them, in the case of an ANCAP, the basics of, the value of human life. Oh no. She's trying to get into a plastic bag, so this will be nice, great audio for you guys. If his kids were ANCAPs, then he would already own them. Very good call, Logan. All right. Did you hear about the Italian dock workers who went on strike to prevent an arms shipment to Saudi Arabia? No, but that's awesome. I salute those dock workers. What are your thoughts on the Anabaptists? I've been told to talk about the Anabaptists. I know that they had this they're like this Christian movement that had this radical egalitarian political side of them. By the way, the link that Kelly just put in the chat, that is a link to my video on the fall of the communist world. So yeah, the Anabaptists. So I don't know very much about them, but they are definitely a group that I have been told are interesting to look into. I just haven't yet. I have so many things to look into. Right now, I am reading books on ancient aliens. I'm reading books on ancient aliens and the Satanic Panic. So that's my world. And then I'll be reading about Buddhism starting in June. Okay. Where was I? How long have Catholics cared about abortion? Earlier said they were ambivalent in the Middle Ages. That is also a good question. Maybe it's a Vatican II thing. Because I know that the Catholic Church went through a lot of major reforms in the 20th century. That, and also it could just be like I'm not exactly sure. Because even in the 1920s, Catholics were really big against abortion and birth control. Yeah. I imagine that it started when abortion stopped being illegal in the 70s. And then before then, they were more anti-birth control. Which, I don't know when they started being anti-birth control. Should do some research on when I did a birth control video, but I can't remember when like the gear started changing. It might be there was like a lot of religious reimaginings and reawakenings in the 19th century, the Victorian age, that might have caused it. Or Tristan can talk to the other side of the Yeti mic and not directly into it. What's it called? What is that?
Ben Weiss says your mic is popping and you need a pop guard.
Oh, yeah. I have a pop filter down there, but I don't have a thing to clip it onto. One of these days I'll get one of those like overhead things, and then I can put a pop filter on it. Thought you were a prison abolitionist. I am. I was just making a goof. I just think that George Bush committed war crimes and got away with it, and that's bad. Romanticism or realism? I'm part of the romantic gang. So like that's like 18th century philosophy, right? I mean, romanticism is considered part of the philosophical underpinnings of the fascist movement, which is terrifying. The whole like love of country, love of your race, love of these things. But there's but I know that I'm trying to remember like my one philosophy class I took like in 2008, and I'm drawing a blank about what the romantics were about besides like the joy of experience and like and also if this is like a reference to that, and if that's the case, then I don't know what the realists are. I've never heard of realist philosophers. I've heard of realism in like the sense of art movements. So is this about art? Is this about art? I don't know what romantic art is versus like realist art. So realist art was just about like, let's make things as accurate and well done as possible. Romantic art, art history. People can get entire degrees in that. My friend Nicole got a master's degree in art history. She would be so disappointed in me right now for not knowing anything. Romantic artists are about the past. Oh, is this literature? Romanticism in art was about being in awe of nature. Oh, okay, that makes sense. So this is like more of like a nature or like kings on the backs of horses type deal. I don't know where I would stand on that. Probably the nature. Romantic art sounds nice. The romantic philosophy. Yeah. The romantic philosophy movement was that was an ugly one. Artists didn't like it and made neo-cubism. Listen, I feel like how can you not enjoy neo-cubism? I mean, if my painting of a woman doesn't have her nose on the side of her head, then like did you even paint her properly? All right. Is there a history of the stock market being tied to slavery? I thought that stocks were from like, I mean, there was slavery as like 16th century trade companies in England. I don't know much about the origin of the stock market. But it would not surprise me if slavery played a role, because it definitely is tied to colonization. I thought abortion was only made illegal in the mid-20th century. No, it was illegal for a while. Like, what's it called? Maybe in Britain it was different, but there were like women had to perform illegal abortions for a very, very long time. Probably since the 19th century. If I could think that like the anti-abortion stuff and illegalizing abortion and such, probably has its timeline to deal with the with the like, here's $20. Thank you so much, Ariel Fernandez. I won't even. I'm just, the fewer questions I ask, the better. That's my answer to that. So abortion was probably made illegal when when doctors started professionalizing the medical field. And a lot of stuff that used to be done, like a lot of abortions and stuff, were done by midwives. And I imagine that the midwives probably have to do, have more to do with, or the midwives and like women practicing sort of this kind of medicine getting bumped out of the medical field and being pushed out of medicine probably comes along with the bans on abortion. And that since then, a lot of abortions were done illegally in ways that are not safe. And it was not until, at least in the United States, until Roe v. Wade in 1974 that that was overturned. But yeah, people have been aborting pregnancies forever. It's really, really old. Terry Weaver, were the Soviets nationalistic? Oh, they definitely were at different points in their history. Like the Soviets called World War II the Great Patriotic War, if that doesn't talk about anything. And also, like, Stalin tried to use, like, like, nostalgia for, like, Russianness to kind of get loyalty. So yeah, there's definitely a strong nationalist current, especially in Russia during the Soviet times. Of course, different leaders would downplay it or upplay it to different degrees. I guess I have to scroll down to another page. Would you have Chuck Philosophy as a guest on your channel for Subscriber Appreciation Day? Your subs are really into philosophy. I'm starting to notice that, Some Random Geek. You guys really like philosophy, and I think that I definitely... I think you're talking about Cuck Philosophy, which is a great YouTube channel that... Sorry about that. Cuck Philosophy is a YouTube channel that you definitely should be subscribed to. It's a YouTube channel that basically is a primer on postmodern philosophy and debunking the sort of misuses of postmodernism that happen in a lot of the internet right, if you will. So, yeah. All right. I think we're good. But yeah, I would love to have Cuck Philosophy on my channel. I still have lots of people I would love to have come on. This weekend, I'm doing Subscriber Appreciation Day, and I'm having Sarah, who runs the channel Let's Talk About Stuff, come on. So, if you like that channel, or if you haven't, you should definitely watch her channel. You should check it out. I think the video that I found her with was a video called it was a study of the politics of the McElroy brothers, which I think was really cool. That was the video where I was like, "Ooh, I got to get her on my show." What's the history of dentistry, and which modern country has the best plan for its citizens? Today, my dentist did malpractice on me, and it got me sad. I know that barbers used to do dentistry at one point. All sorts of wacky stuff happened with dentistry. People used to, like, dentures are, like, really, really old. Or dental implants are really, really old, surprisingly old. People used to use, like, seashells and stuff. I don't know which I haven't done a comparative study of different countries' dental systems, so I can't really speak to that. But I'm sorry that, Leonardo, I'm sorry that you had an unpleasant experience at the dentist today. But yeah, there was a time when barbers used to... they used to do all sorts of stuff. They used to do bloodletting. They used to do, they used to pop boils. And on top of that, they would also do, pull out, they'd pull out, sore teeth and stuff like that. Luckily, they've been bumped down to haircuts and shaving. But there was a time not too long ago where medical treatment was dispersed in a few professions, and it was treated more like a trade than it was like a kind of scientific thing that we do today. Where, for example, if you needed to get a tooth pulled, you'd go to the barber. If you were sick, you might go to a medicine person, a doctor, or a healer. But depending upon if you were really sick, you might go to a priest. Oh boy. Will you make a video on Ayn Rand and her idea on a new series called Ideology? I mean, that's asking me to do a lot of new stuff. I do have a friend who wants to start a podcast with me called Ideology, where we would talk about different ideologies, and you could definitely throw objectivism in there. I'm on the fence about whether I have time to commit to something like that right now. When they started dating, when they started dating, my mom was a Social Democrat Labor voter. My dad was a Thatcherite Tory. Do you think you could stand being in a relationship with someone that was ideologically opposed to you? No, but also that's because politics is a very important part of my life. I could imagine that if you're a person who doesn't take it that seriously, or if you were in a less serious time in history than now, that it might mean less to you. There's a lot of studies that show that a lot of relationships are kind of that have, a lot of those relationships where the two sides of the couple don't see eye to eye on stuff in the age of white nationalism and stuff are actually starting to get on rocky footing. And that Donald Trump is responsible for quite a few divorces and quite a few relationships breaking up. And now people are way less likely to date somebody who does not see politically with them eye to eye, which was less of a thing back in the day. And I think it just has to do with stakes. The stakes of politics were a lot were lower for comfortable middle class people back in the day. And that's less the case now. At what point does connotations become denotations? The connotation of communism always leading to authoritarian seems externally solid. Those are all words I know. I'm a big smart boy who knows all of those words. So connotation, so okay. Yeah, so at what point does a connotation become a denotation? So at what point does a popular idea of something become sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy? Am I kind of getting to where you're going? I imagine that's a process. That's just a process. I'm not exactly sure if there's a point when that happens. Sorry if I didn't answer that question satisfying to you. I'm a little confused. Favorite Taz arc? Ooh. I think Crystal Kingdom. Crystal Kingdom, I think, is my favorite Taz arc. For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, The Adventure Zone, it's a podcast where the McElroy brothers play Dungeons & Dragons, and they had different story arcs, and the one that I think I liked the most was the Crystal Kingdom. It had music, and it was, I think given the as a DM lifer myself, I really like the work that that Griffin McElroy did in the Crystal Kingdom arc. Okay, when will the gamer extermination planned by George Soros commence? I'm asking because I'm tired of putting female protagonists in video games to turn the gamers gay. We're almost there. Once there are no more male protagonists in video games, then we are going to make sure there's no white protagonists in video games. Then once we have done that, when Soros says the command word, then we go for the gamers. So, how much did Frantz Fanon have on... How much impact did Frantz Fanon have on decolonization movements? I'm not sure. Not exactly sure if, like, Mugabe was reading Frantz Fanon, or was reading, like, I don't know if Mugabe was reading, like, Black Face's White Mask or anything like that. I think Frantz Fanon mostly, like, looked... I don't know. Honestly, I'm getting outside of my experience. I've read Black Face's White Masks, but I'm not 100% sure I know what kind of an impact it had on decolonization movements. I feel like that feels a little over-intellectualizing what they were, which were just struggles for freedom. I'm not exactly sure. What I think Black Face's White Mask did was definitely raise people's consciousnesses about about double consciousness, about rejection of European standards of what is considered proper and things like that. I'm not exactly sure how that would translate to the decolonization movements, but definitely he is a leading scholar in decolonization theory. And he was. I don't think he's alive anymore. Okay. Why does the alt-right love Rhodesia so much? Well, because Rhodesia was a... just like... It was like apartheid South Africa, except with Portuguese people. That's why they liked it so much. It was another explicitly white supremacist state with, like, the same types of, like, laws and such. What's it called? Rhodesia's now called Zimbabwe, I want to say. It's not called Rhodesia anymore, I know that. Thoughts on Jack London being a socialist and one of the first major American novelists? It's a good thing. There's a lot of socialists in American writing. Very much think that, like, The Grapes of Wrath is an active socialist writing. Rhodesia was British. I thought it was Portuguese. Oh, I'm thinking of Mozambique, aren't I? Ah, jeez. Well, either way, Rhodesia was a it's another white supremacist state that had definitely had apartheid. Sorry. Yeah. On the Jack London thing, I think it's great that that a lot of American writers. I think that, like, this is why I actually think Bernie Sanders could do well in America, is that I think that there is something very American about socialism. And I think that if you really examine the the spirit of what it is to be American, there's something very socialist in it. And people like Jack London, people like John Steinbeck and such, I think had a lot of it in them. Was the Stocks, Nietzsche, and Kierkegaard right when they thought time is flat? Judging how I haven't read any of those philosophers, I don't think I should answer that question. How can we tell straight people, especially men, that it's okay to be attracted to the same sex? So many straight males are paranoid of trying things out due to social pressures. Yeah, Leonardo, I understand that. it's a in that thing. I don't think it's a masculinity thing. It's a toxic masculinity thing, and really just I'm trying to think about how to do that. How do you defeat toxic masculinity in 30 seconds or less? I think that it's a matter of exposure and patience. If you want to convince somebody that that you don't have to be straight by default, it's just a matter of giving them, or not say giving them an alternative, but like about challenging masculinity, but in a way that is kind of quiet or not quiet, but like a way that is not threatening and trying to be patient with people. Realize that everyone's on a journey, and that no one will ever get there 100%, or no one will ever get there 100% by like pushing and yelling. And honestly, Leonardo, I think that time is on your side. There's a lot. I was just listening to a thing about how like a lot of Zoomers are a lot more open when it comes to gender and sexual identity than even like us millennials, and that's going to become more of a. I think it's going to become more of a thing. So, hang tight. My dad decided to leave the right when they went crazy. Why don't most other old conservatives do that? Do you think having your wife and sons shame you helps? I mean, a little bit, for sure. I think I think that oftentimes being aware of how your ideas affect other people. I think a lot of the times people don't leave the right is because they don't get challenged on it. A lot of the people who hunker down and become super duper right wing either are old and isolated people who are only surrounded by other right wing people, or they're young and isolated people who only go on Discord servers that promote alt-right fasci things. I would think that really in a lot of those times exposure is really the thing that gets people where it is. Oh man, I'm sorry that the thing keeps going in and out. I don't know what it is. It's something to do with the servers, because there's nothing wrong on my end. I see no connection issues going through. Can you make a video on traditional Chinese religious practice like feng shui? Maybe. Right now, my religion series is currently in, I'm doing the Indian religions, and I'm thinking after that I'm going to do the Abrahamic religions, but I definitely want to go to East Asia and do like Confucianism and things like that. So I'll get there. The series, I have my whole life to do the series, so we'll get to places eventually. How can we nurture gender and sexual fluidity without enforcement and punishing people who desire to be straight and act traditional? Just show them that. It would be more of a thing that's like just show that that the alternative exists, and that if they want to explore it, they're in a safe place. And really, there's a lead a horse to water type situation. But in that mind, it's just like you just need to let them know that if they want to explore different identities, different sexual identities, that they are in a safe place to do so, because a lot of people don't feel like they are in a safe place to do so. And if it's something that they want to explore, then they will. Thoughts on choice feminism? Example, I'm a feminist, but that depends upon what kind of feminism you're talking about. If you're talking about like kind of like liberal lean-in feminism, I think that it is like a lot of other liberal identity things. It's a way of undercutting true social justice movements by framing success on social justice fronts through a capitalist lens, and seeing seeing different identity groups in competition with each other rather than in cooperation with each other. And so it's something that I would say is unproductive, and that's why you need your intersectionality, you need your class-based look at things. Otherwise, you're going to have this sort of weird liberal concept of like the oppression Olympics, and I don't think that gets anyone anywhere, because when you have competition, a few people win and a lot of people lose, and we have to realize these aren't competitions. Oh, there's more. Did you know the Welsh are legally British? Yeah, I thought the whole British Isles, like the whole island that that the UK is on, and also Ireland, are called the British Isles. So that makes them legally British, right? Have you heard of Larry Krasner, the Philadelphia Democrat that decriminalized weed? Big if, but if Sanders gets in, there's a real chance he's AG IMO. Well, that's good. I do know that Sanders has a goal to become a goal to legalize cannabis. So I imagine it's time. The United States, like the path towards legalization of cannabis, is only being stalled by the Trump presidency. Eventually, like, cannabis will be legal in America before long. It's already legal here in Canada. It's just a matter of time. Thoughts on St. Augustine? Is he more progressive than his contemporaries? I don't really know much about that. Sorry. Do you know about the origin of the traditionalist school, Evola and Guénon? No, sorry, Argos. Not a philosopher. Did you hear about they just redefined the SI units? No. I don't know anything about the imperial system because it's silly and strange, and America should stop doing it. Did you ever get an objection from your parents for focusing on the humanities, and have you had arguments with STEM lords? My dad used to joke that I should only go to university for computer programming, medicine, or law. Oh no, not law. He said if I became a lawyer that I would be a disappointment. But I can only go to school for like science, business, or computers. That was it. But honestly, no. I actually got really lucky with like my parents were. Is metric science units okay? I'll get into that in a second. Yeah, my parents were super, super cool with me doing a history degree. My parents are both history buffs, and they were 100% on board for me going into a history degree. Okay, so the science units. I did hear that they are redoing the science units because figuring out what the kilogram is by having a metal thing in a cage in France and like having a meter and stuff like that was just not a long-term feasible project. And so now they're using these extremely technical definitions of all of these things in order to make it more standardized, and I think that makes sense. From what I've heard, it makes sense. And have I had arguments with STEM lords? Yes, I am one of the most grumpy. Like, I really am angry that people are so pro STEM and so anti humanities, and it's leading to like real budget cuts and stuff like that I really don't like. And like when you hear like the women in STEM thing, I'm like, I want women in humanities too. I want more women historians and more, I want more women in poli-sci and such. Do you think it's possible for a leftist to come out of a super privileged conservative background, i.e., can a leftist be raised by Republican millionaires? Sure. Yeah, people do that stuff all the time. If Trump, it's an uphill fight, but it's definitely a thing you can do. If Trump disobeyed legislative subpoenas and support for the judiciary, does that mean that we no longer have checks and balances? The court said okay to House subpoenas, but Trump won't follow. A little bit. That's a tough one. It's definitely a blow to it, that's for sure. Yeah. Do you know why STEM lords become edgelords on the internet? Any college career group stereotype that you know? Yeah. Like the people who don't see value in philosophy and political science and history and stuff like that, very often don't have strong critical examination skills. That's the kind of stuff that humanities teaches you, is how to be a critical thinker. I knew a guy who was a total STEM lord when I was doing my PhD, and when we had we were running a radio show together, and when we had somebody on to talk about he was a media studies guy who was doing his I think he was working on an article about feminism, the feminist themes in Mad Max Fury Road, and the guy was like honestly flabbergasted that there can be, like, he didn't comprehend that movies could have readings that were not just like the literal watching of the movie. Like the idea that there could be like subtext and themes and things like that. Like he's like, wait, what? Like, what is this? Like, it's a thing. It's a thing. And yeah, I think there was like a great tweet that came out recently that's talking about how, hey, you notice that like fascism came back as soon as we like cut all of the humanities programs? Wonder what that's about. Oh, here we go. Look who's back. Third time's a charm. Mm-hmm. Everyone loves you in the chat. You know that, right? I'm waiting for the chat to just go cat, cat, cat. Yeah. Oh, we're quickly running out of time. So, at what point do progressives feel like we progressed enough? I don't know. I feel like we've got a long way to go before that's a thing. We're very far from having progressed enough, so let's not worry about it. How can you detect the difference between an edgy lord from rich parents pretending to be leftist from a blue-collared leftist? Should we call them out on their shallow bullshit? An edgelord from rich parents pretending to be a leftist. I don't understand how you can be an edgelord and pretend to be a good person. I would challenge the like leftishness at the leftishness of like tankies and stuff like that, if that's like the edgelord you're talking about. I mean, definitely call out tankies on their bullshit. I don't really think we should worry about where their background is. They respond to this. Capitalism without socialism becomes fascism. Socialism without capitalism becomes communism. Sounds about right. I sucked at humanities subjects. Why am I attracted to leftism? I mean, I feel like leftists come to their position by having a personality that's based on justice, equality, and kindness, but also comes from, critically examining your world. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a humanities major to do those things. All right. I feel like I'm going to answer these last two questions. My voice is starting to go, so I'll answer these last two questions and then I will close down for the night. Are you familiar with the archaeological history of colonization of Indonesia and Polynesia, and how? Except for like the like awesome like Moana sailing thing where they use the stars, and they did like the Polynesians did like some impressive very impressive sailing techniques that Europeans didn't come close to until a lot later. I think that's pretty cool. What do you say to the concept that Republican women and Muslim women act against their own interests because they have been brainwashed? I don't think they act against their own interests. I think that first of all, lumping those two together, I think, is a little unfair. Republican women are usually pretty well off, and they're not challenged in their privilege, and often, I mean, they're definitely fooled into voting against class interest. Muslim women, though, like, there are lots of Muslim women in the world that come from all sorts of backgrounds. There are Muslim feminists. There's Muslim communist feminists. There's all sorts of like, I don't know. That feels like a way too broad of a generalization to make about Muslim women. I mean, Islam is a patriarchal religion, which it shares in common with literally every other religion. I don't know. Ow. All right. So, friends, I think that is all I have in me for tonight. This has been Step Back Tonight. I really hope to see many of you come back next week. We've done some really great stuff. Just a heads up, just so you know, in case people get confused, there's not going to be there's going to be a quick step on Monday. There's not going to be a countdown stream on Monday next week. I'm going to have it on Friday instead. It's going to be a countdown to a new Step Back video. I'm covering a shift, so. All right. You guys, have an amazing week. Bye.